It's my great pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, whom I met in Paris by strange circumstances over 5 years ago when USC rented our space at RSAP, and Stephen Ehrlich was teaching, and I went to visit to make sure that everything was okay. This was in July. And we walked across the street to our local bar. We both sat down and we both ordered Pinot Noir. And I knew right then and there that we were kindred souls. And I also later found out that we have another thing in common, and that is that our youngest daughter is called Julia, too. Each of us has a young daughter. One of mine is here by a strange circumstance also. But it's really great to welcome you tonight. And the last time I saw you was at Barton Springs when we plunged into that cold water together. So it's a special treat to see you tonight. I've always loved your work. Essentially, I've sort of seen it through its a kind of clean technology, but also, as I've come to know you, it's really more about its cultural context. And I think you call that multicultural modernism. And as I understand it, you've also trademarked that term. So if anyone uses it, you have to pay royalty, which is 0, by the way. Stephen was one of the first architect under the Peace Corps to go to Marrakesh in Morocco, right after graduating from Rensselaer, where he was for 2 years, and then traveled in Africa and ended up teaching in the architecture school in Nigeria for 4 years, and relocated to the United States, and visited your sister in Los Angeles and decided that this was the place to be, and this was in the early 70s. I should also say to those of you interested, Stephen grew up in Radford, was it not Radford, Clarence Stein, Newtown, so I think there's some stories there to be told. In any event, his work has been widely published, over 70 important awards, 6 to 8 monographs, depending on where I've seen it. Buildings that originally were mostly residential, but now are huge projects. So it's really a treat to have you here, and welcome. Thanks, John. Put that on. Oops. Thank you, John. Thanks everybody for coming. It's great to be here. And if we could turn off the lights, that would be appreciated. So I want to talk a little bit about a journey. This journey that John alluded to of basically living for 6 years in Africa. And actually one of my biggest influences is architecture without architects. And I've learned from the sustainable wisdom of people who live in delicate balance with their environment. And this is actually in the southern edge of Algeria, but right at the edge of the Sahara, of the deep Sahara. And it's a walled city. All the materials that these people build from are basically stones from the area. And of course, there's no air conditioning, and the heat goes up to 120 degrees. They do it with thermal mass and with courtyards and ventilation. And it's interesting how these cities also have the minaret. At the top of and the most important location is the mosque. And here is the marketplace, where basically it's the gathering place for the entire village. And there's often souks with
shaded devices that cast beautiful shadows, and there's just a great deal of animation and life. Also in the Sahara Desert, this being in Tunisia, I was very fortunate to come upon this building that is actually a fortress. And what's kind of phenomenal about it is that it's a courtyard building, literally in the middle of the Sahara Desert. And it has basically these are granaries. Each one is a vault stacked on top of itself. And notice basically the countryside. Well, the countryside is basically stone, and they take these stones, and if you have to span a distance in stone, you use an arch, and therefore the arch. And this courtyard, which is acting as a courtyard because it is a fortified area where all of the little villages nearby are storing their grain. There's also a tribe, you may have heard of them, the Tuaregs. The Tuareg, maybe some of you know the music Tanawaran. I don't know if you know that band. It's like they went electric about 10 years ago, and they're amazing. If they come to Houston, go see them. And there are these desert nomads that basically these are the kinds of structures that are, the structure stays put, and they then lead their nomadic life with camels, and then they come back at times and they lash these mats onto the structure. So here you see the mats on that dome-like structure, and you can see the camel's legs back there. And this whole experience just made me aware and marvel at how delicately people are living in balance with their environment. This is the Niger River that slices through the Sahara in Mali, in the country of Mali. It goes to its northerly point to Timbuktu, and then you come further a bit south in the Niger River. Steve, Elizabeth's right over here. And then in Djenné is the largest building built out of mud in the world, and it's the Djenné Mosque, a phenomenal structure that this building has to have its mud is recoated every year after the rainy season. This is the rooftop of the mosque, and their ventilation system is they take these little caps off of these little pottery ceramic caps, and there's a hole in each mound, and all the air is let out. The hot air is let out at night, and then they close it up in the daytime. So thermal mass at work, time lag. And then the Dogon in Mali are, if ever there was a description that I would try to paint a picture of organic architecture, this would be it. And the Dogon are a very unique group of people in Mali along the cliffs of the Bandigara. And if you observe, these are granaries where they store millet, and every granary has a round top and a square bottom. And then if you come to a smaller scale, every Dogon basket always has a round top and a square bottom. So I did some reading about the Dogon after I had returned to the United States. A French anthropologist had studied them. And it turns out that these are very important symbols, and the circle representing the heavens and the square representing the earth. And what I find fascinating, though, is that they have no need to reinvent form or to change their form, because the rain falls, the millet grows, the granaries are filled, and they are living in balance with their environment and the cosmos. Dropping down along the Gold Coast of Ghana, it's a whole different environment. Now you're in hot, humid climate where basically it's all about a roof, and you have a roof that protects you from rain, and natural ventilation comes in, and a very open society is the result. So segueing to some of our work, this is a house that we did in one of the canyons in Los Angeles, and it's you can notice the different vertical masses that are all different colors, and actually those colors are all found in the bark of these sycamore trees that are on the site. So literally, every one of these colors was a special pigment that we were able to mix into the stucco. And here you see how we saved all of the trees. The house descends into the landscape, and in fact, because of grade changes, we used this stairways down as a broadened stairway and a theater, if you will, theater seating for kids. And looking back at the pool, you start to see how the pool is an extrusion of the architecture using similar colors and materials. Inside these vertical masses, by the way, are all serving the spaces that are adjacent. So they house stairways or fireplaces, restrooms. And if you look carefully, you'll see some lines that are made by the trowel mark. And I'm actually very interested in trying to express the hand of the craftsmen or the builders who put the building together. And I had just seen an exhibit in New York of Jackson Pollock, and came back, and it was just at the time when they were applying the final coat. So I excitedly had them start giving me more energy, if you will, and they started slashing the stucco, and it's quite interesting, and I think it adds something special to this house. Another part of multicultural modernism is trying to create community, and also, of course, listening to people and place. And this is a small 15,000-foot branch library in Westwood, very close to UCLA. And one of the interesting site conditions was that this is a small cemetery. This is Wilshire Boulevard, if you've heard of that. UCLA is just to the left. And that cemetery is actually where many celebrities are buried, including Marilyn Monroe and Burt Lancaster and many others. And what was interesting about it is that we were able to grab that greenery and bring it into the building. I'll show you in a second. So we created this large front porch that was very important to create a gathering place, a place where people could hang out, kids could wait for their parents to pick them up. And the main reading room, by virtue of how we had to park cars and community rooms, etc., the main reading room is up a flight of stairs. And this is, by the way, just a photograph of a ryokan in Kyoto, but it kind of shows, I'm showing it just because the interest of borrowing the landscape from adjacent properties. And here is the main reading room, and though the greenery beyond is actually the cemetery. So we were able to grab all that light and greenery, if you will, as a borrowed landscape. Learning from other cultures, learning from Japanese architecture and how it embraces the adjacencies of their site conditions. This is a house that we just completed. It's in West Los Angeles, and it's an interesting story because with all of the houses that we do, I try to have a very close relationship and understanding about the clients and really try to have the house express who they are. And he's actually an African art dealer, so the fact that we have both spent a lot of time in Africa, we wanted this rusting, somewhat African-influenced barn, hard to describe. Here's the location. UCLA would be right there. And so this is all corrugated Corten steel with doors that slide completely open into pockets in the wall. This is this overhang that protects the glass. And you can see some of his collection and African elements that are part of the furniture inside. And he's also a hunter. And so they wanted to express themselves, and knotty pine ceiling. I had never done a knotty pine ceiling before. I don't know that I'll ever do it again. Zebra carpet, certainly that was a new one on me. Interestingly enough, they always stay in character. He's always wearing camouflage, never changes, and she's always wearing either leopard or zebra skin. Fake, that is. And you can see from their closet, the hunter on the left, and the hunted on the right, and they really do live by their belief system. This project is part of this overall philosophy of multicultural modernism in numerous ways. It's a biotech research building that we designed well, actually I should go back for a second. There's the Charles River, MIT is to the right, and they're doing genetic research inside the building. And we were actually one of the first architects, maybe the first, to bring channel glass into the United States used in a curtain wall situation, as well as terracotta. If you look carefully at the terracotta patterning, we used 4 different textures of the terracotta. And we did our own little analysis of DNA and studying the fact that there were basically four sequencing gels that make up a DNA molecule. So if you look carefully, you'll actually see DNA going up and down the side of this building in terracotta. We're still looking for whose it is. We don't know yet. But it's part of that, it continues that idea of listening to people, listening to place, and trying to express what's unique about the activities within. In terms of the laboratories, it was a very massive building, and we wanted to bring light into the center of the building. So we have a 6-story atrium that is skylit rather. But what we wanted to do that was very important is we're finding that it's so essential for there to be connections where people bump into each other. I like to call it the chance encounter, synergistic encounters, because so often we're so scheduled. We're scheduled, all of our appointments have been scheduled by the iPhone, or you're always buried into your computer. So what we did was we created living rooms in the sky and coffee bars adjacent, and this is where people come and they basically hang out, they bump into each other, and we're getting feedback from the scientists that that's actually a very essential part of actually the success of this building, is that people are literally bumping into each other in a non-scheduled way. We also used very technical materials like stainless steel mesh and brought in wood, stained concrete. So there's this dance between the natural and the man-made. Now, this is a house that we did in Houston called the Bayou Residence for Elizabeth Howard and Roy Trice. And they are art collectors, and they're very interested in the work of Donald Judd. And actually, Donald Judd's work did influence the design of this house. You'll see it and hear a little bit more about it. Gives you an idea of the location. The bayou, here's the bayou on the north, right there. And this is a photograph that I took in Marfa, Texas. I'm not sure if any of you have been there. I'm sure many of you have, but if you haven't, try to go there. It's really Mecca. It's just an amazing place to go to, and you see this beautiful ephemeral casting of shadows and light in the work of Donald Judd, whose geometries are pure and elegant and quite amazing. And so these are just some scans from my sketchbook and how it started to influence the design of the house. And here you see there are these 5 elements that are clad in Texas limestone. This material was copper, and they are and they're all in composition. And also, again, I think you can see the Donald Judd influence. And the house was also designed to be filled with art. Unfortunately, this house didn't come to pass. There was a parting of the way of the couple, but it was still a wonderful learning experience, and I think that I probably have learned from the process, although I must say, obviously, architecture really comes to its true, it's only when it's built does it really become architecture, in my opinion. This is the Place Jam Fna. This is the great meeting square of Marrakesh in Morocco, and this is the place where for 2 years I went there every day, and it was just an ever-changing experience, and it's really a courtyard on the scale of a city. And it was a great place of community. This is a photograph of Los Angeles, and Los Angeles, I think, is similar to many Western cities, similar to Houston, similar to Phoenix, where the car has created this kind of connectivity, and it disperses the city. But I believe that there is a new interest, a kind of rekindled interest in creating community and communities, walking districts within these Western cities. This is a project that is very much a part of a piece of a puzzle that does that. This is in Phoenix. It's Arizona State University's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. And you can see the brand new light rail. This is Central Avenue in downtown Phoenix. And there was a very interesting intersection of academia and the city. The city invited Michael Crow, the president, to create a new campus downtown in order to bring in students and life and activity into the downtown core, and so actually funded the project for the university. There is a new park that has just been completed, and a 3-block long pedestrian walkway, all connecting various parts of the campus to the city. And the patterning on this is corrugated, 3 colors of corrugated steel painted, and they are, the patterning was influenced by studying the frequency spectrum of radio and television waves. And, but interestingly enough, we were very concerned about the ground level, and so there's 3 retail establishments at ground level, and I think the next, oh, okay. Well, anyway, so we have 3 retail establishments on both ends of the building, and it's a way of really making the building much more public. The other thing that we did is this project was built for the first time. We got to experience a methodology of delivery called design build, and we, working hand in hand with a contractor and a local architect, HDR, we designed and built this building in 22 months. It was occupied within 22 months, which is kind of hard to imagine. That could never happen in California. There's too much democracy in California to stop it from happening. But it could happen in Houston, I think. And it's a post-tension concrete structure that is 6 stories tall, and on the top, the television studios are on the top, and you'll see in a moment they're made out of steel because they're long span structures. And it was very interesting we met also a very tight budget. There's the corrugated steel going on now. The pedestrian wall would be in the foreground. We also, we got a variance. We got 28 variances in one day from the city, and one of them was to allow satellite dishes to be expressed. Because it's a building of communication, we felt that the satellites should not be hidden. You know, there was a city code, oh, you have to hide satellites, but with a screen. But our point was, wait a minute, let it express itself. So again, we were able to get that and several other detailed variances that were very helpful. This stairway, by the way, is the main stairway going up and down the building, the main public stair. And we worked with an artist, Paul Deeb, out of Baltimore, and there was this very interesting light piece that was developed where there's a double skin of glass with an opening at the bottom, so hot air rises, and floating on monofilaments are shards of aluminum that move from the hot air movement going up, and they cast wonderful patterns of light. So it's an ever-changing light piece. It's really quite wonderful. And we used a lot of very simple devices. For example, the concrete floor is just ground smooth, and so it feels and looks like terrazzo, but in fact it's just the concrete slab. And we like the concept of twofers, trying to get two things for the price of one. And on the second floor, stretching up to the third floor, is the Walter Cronkite, basically the forum. And this is where most of this is like the main gathering place on the scale of this school's community. And this is the large broadcasting facilities on the top floor. So one might have thought that you would put TV studios on the ground level, but we couldn't do that because they demanded very long span spaces, and it would have been really very difficult to put a lot of weight on top of a long span. So we reversed it, put them on the top floor, and put in a huge freight elevator. And the specification for the elevator was that it had to be able to hold a VW Bug. So all of the big sets go up and down the elevator, and it turned out to be a much better strategy. This is a warehouse that we did in the Los Angeles area, and again, it's about creating community. This is a large warehouse. We put a cafe, a little cafeteria on each end, and we created Main Street in this 600,000 square foot facility. And it's built out of tilt-up concrete, and it was the first time we worked with tilt-up. It's very interesting material. I quite like it. It's very fast to erect, and you can do interesting things. The form liner that we just put on the slab where it was poured that was particle board. So there you see the 3/4 inch indentation and the slightly different texture. And we brought light into the main workspace through channel glass. And here you see the light coming into the warehouse area. We don't air condition it. It's naturally ventilated, and we were very lucky. A company out of Texas produces these fans, and the name of the company is the Big Ass Fan Company. And so they're the Big Ass fans. And here's one of the outdoor extending from indoors to outdoor, one of the anchors to Main Street. And this is Main Street, where we raised up a pedestrian walkway, are planting bamboo, putting down some furniture, and the reason it's up on a curb is so the forklifts can't, safety basically. And then connecting back to one of the warehouse areas. And another project that we're now doing doing in Houston, and very excited to be working again in Houston. This is for Dr. Stefan Kreutzer and Dr. Barbara Schrader, and it's in the Memorial area. They're here. Thanks for coming. I appreciate that. And it's a house that's really about creating the community for their family. And as I had mentioned earlier, I am very interested in getting to know my clients, and usually I become friends with them. But I took that to a new height today. I was actually invited to be in surgery, watching watching a hip replacement and a knee replacement today, which is it's an amazing, phenomenal thing to watch. And thank you for inviting me. I'm glad I didn't pass out. And it was really very interesting to see Dr. Kreutzer in action and how mechanical the whole event is. Really very, very interesting. So what we're trying to do is, on the site plan, that's a guest house, of course the main house. And this is the motor court for guests, for the family. And notice this wall here, because this area being the living room, dining room, opens out, but we block the view to cars. And you can start to see that here, where, so you walk through a courtyard into the main entrance of the house, which is the gathering for the more formal gathering portion of the house. This material, by the way, will be Rhine zinc, which is a beautiful material from Germany. And as we get closer in, we've also clad certain elements of the house in Rhine zinc, this being the stairway, and that stair, we're starting to actually design the stair, and we're looking at skeletal structure as something that will influence the details of the stairway. We're still in the process of design and dealing with sun control and large overhangs. This project is for Pomona College, and Pomona College is a venerable institution about 50 or so, maybe 40 miles east of Los Angeles. You can see the snow-covered mountains in the winter. And this is Clark Hall. This is a 1930s dormitory. And we are building 150 beds, 2 new buildings that are in relationship to Clark Hall. And it was a very interesting conversation that we had with the Board of Trustees, with faculty, and with students as well. The students, and we certainly are in total agreement, they really are embracing a sustainable future. And as a result, we were able to convince the Board of Trustees that, no, we're going to have to forego the red tile roofs because we have to harvest energy from the roof. So we have a large farm of photovoltaics that are on the roof, and so we've detailed it obviously completely different than the red tile traditional roofs of the existing buildings. We also, on these 2-story portions of the project for the dormitory, we also we are allowing the public to come, and we'll have an exhibit of solar generation with information. And on this rooftop, we're going to actually have we're going to have a vegetable garden. This drawing is a little bit difficult to read because it's actually cut in section, but we're parking underneath and rebuilding the playing field. There's a frisbee and soccer playing field, but you get a sense of how the rooftops are being used. And we are we're building the building in precast concrete, and we're using it in a thermal mass solution. So we absorb the coolness in the night and re-emit it into the rooms during the day. And we've brought the terracotta back in detailing, where this sunscreen is actually made out of terracotta panels. So an aerial photograph, this is an aerial of Marrakesh, and let's see, that little house right there was where I lived. And I really love this photograph because you can see the density of how habitation works in Marrakesh. And again, it's very much about courtyards. This density, by the way, rivals that of Manhattan. And you can also see the Place General Fana, which is the courtyard on the scale of the city. So I was looking at having just come back from Morocco, and looking, and that's on the right, of course, and on the left is the American dream turned into a nightmare, where everybody has to have that little orange tree in their front yard, except there's a problem. Land costs are too high, Certainly in California, we have issues with that. So here you see everybody's plopped their house down in the middle of a lot, and everything else is paved. So that's why I call it the American dream turned into a nightmare. So I scratched my head and started thinking, well, why do we keep following the suburban paradigm when in fact the courtyard could yield some very interesting solutions? So I want to show you a few projects that have been influenced by that experience. This is a house in Northern California, and you can see the two buildings have been pulled apart, and here it is in plan, where essentially there is a courtyard that becomes the outdoor living room for the house. We're using, this is, the chimney is concrete block. And here you see the courtyard. This is a beautiful material of cast glass. And that, by the way, is Rhine zinc. Rhine zinc is quite beautiful. It doesn't, it's inert, and so it just weathers and kind of forms its own patina, and it never needs any coatings or maintenance. Looking back in the other direction to the bedroom area, we built in a barbecue. You can see that on the right. And of course, it's a wonderful site looking out at the ocean. And when you go upstairs, there's this marvelous, this is in a sense almost like a courtyard. It's a roof terrace looking out at the Pacific. But it has the amenities of an outdoor kitchen supporting it. This is another courtyard project with a bit of history. The photo that you see on the upper left is the original house, which is that, and it's a house designed by Richard Neutra in 1938. And my clients who have owned the house for probably 15 years or maybe 12 years, they bought the adjacent lot next door, and we added this new wing, adding essential parking and guest quarters, and created a courtyard where this entertainment pavilion sits. And so here and it was very interesting to actually deal with a house designed by Neutra, and there's a lot of debate. I mean, do you just say, no, I won't do that commission and not touch it, which, by the way, I think certain houses of certain pedigree should get that reaction. The Neutra level house, for one, falling water, of course. I mean, there are certain houses that must be frozen in time and just held there. But this was for a family that had to live there. We honored, actually, Neutra in a different way. We took cues from his architecture, but actually changed it in a material way. For example, we were influenced by his semicircular, basically French window, you might call it, and we added this pavilion with an arch. But it's a cycloidal arch. A cycloidal arch is an ancient Roman formula that is the same mathematical formula that Louis Kahn used on the Kimball Art Museum. And it's a flattened arch, and somehow for me it's kinetic and more dynamic than a pure semicircle. And you can also see influence of these spider legs, which was one of Neutra's signature ideas that he worked with. But interestingly enough, most of Neutra's houses were actually stucco and wood houses painted to look like steel and concrete. Well, we actually got to use stainless steel and concrete. So it's a similar color palette that is now, though, in much more solid materials like stainless and cast-in-place concrete. And here you see the cast-in-place concrete, the entertainment pavilion, doors that slide completely out of the way into a pocket, extending to a barbecue. And here's the pool as an enclosed, looking back. The pool is an enclosed courtyard. And I've become increasingly interested in transformative environments. So with the push of a button, the door slides away and you're connected to the sand and to the beach. This is a house that also explores courtyards that is in Palo Alto. This residence is about, not even a mile from Stanford. And there are 4 courts There's the dining entrance court, the redwood tree court. There's a large stand of redwoods, the pool court, and the motor court. So it's a pinwheel design. And here we're exploring composition of different materials. We're using mahogany, Rhine zinc, and stucco. We bring the materials from the outside in, extending space. And because of restrictions in the FAR, or the floor area allowed in that neighborhood, we had to build some of the program into a basement. So there's a large basement that has a playroom and gallery and an exercise room. And we bring light through this window and through these glass treads and bridges. And that's how we are bringing the warmth of natural light into the basement. And here you see the pool court, how we're also very concerned with outdoor covered areas. All of these, by the way, all of these fireplaces are cast in place concrete. Looking the other way. And in plan, there is a spine, and this spine was all cast in place. This is the model of that wall. That is ground level. This is the basement level, and all of these elements are furniture that we built into the wall, and these become places where they have a ceramics collection and books, and so the wall really becomes kind of the anchor to the house. And now we're trying to take the concept of courtyards vertically. This is Taipei, Taiwan. That's Taipei 101, which up until, I don't know, maybe I think just a couple of years ago was the tallest building in the world, but now the tallest building is in Dubai. And in orange is our site. And this is in the Nankang district. And this photo, we have two towers that are being built right now. And that happens to be just netting for our construction site. And we're looking from one site to another. But the reason I'm showing it is that this other piece of land is where we're now designing two other towers that you see here. And what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to create communal lobby courtyards that are, I'll try to explain further, so there's eight units per floor plate, per building. And this is where the elevator lobby is. So every other floor is a communal courtyard in the sky that you can go out onto. And what we do is we stagger it. There are courtyards on each side of the lobby. So it's a double-ended lobby. So every floor can always go outside to some communal green area. And at the entrance pavilion, we're going to be using thin film photovoltaics as the entrance canopy as you come into the complex. So this project will probably start construction in about a year. This project really was unique in that it had a very loud voice. They discovered on this 100-acre campus in San Bernardino that the San Jacinto fault line went right through it. And we got to design 5 new buildings that, if you'll notice, they're all perpendicular or parallel to the fault line. So this is what the campus looked like before they discovered the fault. And those buildings had to be demolished because they were considered, within 50 feet on each side of the fault line would be just impossible to build on. So one of our challenges was to respect and basically be in dialogue with the existing Italianate architecture built in the 30s, and yet we had to do buildings that were much lighter and much stronger. And in fact, this project has to be laterally stabilized to 4 times the strength of a normal project in California. And the way we do that is with these diagonal unbonded brace frames And here you see them, and we thought that was part of the story. So we basically express all of the lateral stabilities, the diagonals. And that joint is an interesting joint because if you look carefully, that's a little micrometer scratch plate. So if there's a seismic event, it actually will measure how much movement there is. And if there's too much of an event, then simply we unbolt the connection and put in a new brace. Something for you to think about, Stefan. And here again, the lecture hall and all of these unbonded brace frames are expressed, providing lateral stability. We also, we looked at computer models of the tectonic plate movement of the Earth and how it triangulates, and that inspired our roofs that are really composed of triangles, and every entrance to each of the 5 buildings comes and kisses the ground and forms a shaded entrance point. And we also, in some ways, we turned the building upside down or inside out, I should say, where we took all the circulation and actually expressed it outside with large roof overhangs. And this courtyard becomes an important gathering place on the scale of the community. With the success of the Walter Cronkite School, the same team was invited back to Arizona State University, but now on the Tempe campus, the main campus, to design their new school of space and Earth and space exploration. And it's a laboratory building that we're dealing with some very interesting sun control issues. This is all western-facing sun. So we have louvers here that are on a tracking system, so it can be completely closed down or opened up, depending on what amount of sun is penetrating into the building. On the north, we're just basically performance glass facing north. Here you see the very simple partie. All the laboratories are in this L-shaped partie, and the offices, and then the main gathering place in the intersection. You'll see that in a moment. And so we have a skylit atrium that is 5 stories tall up until this floor. On the 3rd floor, it becomes a private research institution, and on the 2 lower floors, it's a learning and teaching institution open to the public. And so there are public amenities. And one of the public amenities is that they have a live feed to the there's a Mars rover that's taking live feed images from Mars, and that's our Mars landing place where you can actually watch video from live TV from Mars. And this is one of the photos that was taken by the rover. And so with our atrium, which has all of the ideas of courtyard and gathering and chance encounter and living rooms in the sky, we also have taken from that photograph and we've created an abstraction of carpet from the Mars photo, so you can walk on Mars. And the last topic that I want to talk about is cross-cultural fusion. I was driving in the southern part of Nigeria, this goes back many years, and I saw this house, jammed on the brakes, and then out came this guy dressed like his house. So I got really excited. I wanted to know the story. What was this all about? What's the origin? So I started to talk to him, and he explained to me that he worked for an Italian contractor in Brazil and then came back to Nigeria to build his dream home. So you can see the Italianate balustrade, the Brazilian fanciful cornice, the laterite Nigerian stonework, and he has created a work of basically fusion. Cross-cultural fusion. And here you see on the shores of Lake Tanganyika, you see a little fishing village, and these people completely skipped the Industrial Revolution. They just went right to the 21st century. Why waste time? Why pollute? And here they are generating electricity. But I think that there is something interesting. I think that in a world that is becoming increasingly globalized, I think that there needs to be a discussion, and I don't think that architecture is a brand that should be just plopped down wherever it may go. And I think that is happening, and we all know many of the brands. And I think that it's important to be part of the contemporary architectural dialogue, but at the same time be culturally referential and sensitive. And here is a very large house in Dubai that was inspired by a crescent moon. A crescent moon has very important symbolic influence in Islam. And here, this roof in cross-section in a crescent moon the size of a football field has been lifted up on 14 stone-clad columns. And there were many specific aspects to this house, including a men's greeting area, the family area. We added water and a sunscreen. You'll see more about that in a moment. And here you see the cantilever of the roof. It's clad in, it's built out of structural concrete, but it's clad in aluminum, so it shimmers like a new moon. Much of the house dances below it with roof terraces on top and doors that can completely slide open and extend into the landscape. This is the men's majlis, or the men's greeting area, which is glowing onyx, and in the daytime it's reversed. And the outside of the family portion of the house is a musharabia, or a sunscreen. We contemporarized Islamic pattern in cast aluminum, meter square cast aluminum. This is facing south, and we dug very deep wells and hit water, and we created an oasis, and we brought water in. So we've created our own microclimate, and we bring that microclimate into the house, and we get a very cool, cooling effect. Of course, it's air conditioned as well, but it does have the moisture added from the evaporation of the water within the house. And there's also a wonderful casting of Islamic patterning onto the floor. And if you look carefully, we found different colors from the same quarry. This is a local stone, and we're able to create a subtle patterning of Islamic pattern in the flooring. And here you see how the house can, actually this is all on a photo eye, so as you walk to the door, they slide open and you can walk outside. These are rather large doors, probably 12 feet tall, looking back from the swimming pool back to the main house. The first project that I ever did get built was a little theater when I was teaching at Ahmadu Bello University in Nigeria. And this was actually an experimental building. The campus was built out of concrete and steel, but this project was a little experimental theater, and we built it out of local materials. Here you see the mud bricks being built. This is the extent of my working drawings. Those days are certainly over. And I'm sure that this will be, of course we're very interested in sustainable projects, but this will certainly be the most sustainable building I'll ever get to build, I'm sure, because when they stop maintaining it, it'll just melt back to the earth from which it came. But what was also important about it was that it really was about the Department of Drama taking over, and here you see where audience is in the back and performer in the front, and here you see theater in the round. So by making it an experimental space with no fixed seating, it was really the students who defined the space and took it over in very, very creative ways. And also it was the first time that I, which continues to be an interest of mine, integrated the work of local artists into the architecture. And this is kind of a story that comes full circle. This photo was taken about a year ago, and this man is now my client, and we're, if it ever happens, we are designing the National Theater in the capital city of Nigeria. And so we went back to visit the theater, the little Amadou Bello Theater, now 35 years old, and it still exists, and it was really a treat. And so suddenly, my African experience is starting to come full circle. We were recently invited to be in a design competition for the gateway to the city of Abuja, which is the capital city. And we just found out last week that we won the competition. It's a gateway that is basically halfway between the airport and the downtown city. And it's meant to be a cultural venue as well. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that this building will actually come to pass. Some of the influences were musical instruments and traditional weaving. This was the first sketch that I did that shows you the idea of this pylon tension cable bridge, pedestrian bridge. And we want the ability to have flags that can be changed on the bridge, so as people are coming on the highway, they can actually, it's kind of weaving a fabric of different information depending on time of year, perhaps dignitaries visiting, etc. And I won't get into the whole program, but it does include venues that music and dance is an important part of this project. And what we're doing is we're suspending photovoltaics for shade for this outdoor amphitheater. You can start to see that here. And this will be painted concrete, painted the color of laterite clay soil, so it's fitting in to the, into the richness of that environment. And here we're using photovoltaics as a way to create shade. So the last project I want to show you is a solar home. So you can see I've been interested in a solar home for a long time. And this is my 7th grade science fair project. And here's my new solar home in Venice, California for my family and I. It's, in many ways, I'd like to think of it as a summation of this philosophy or concept of multicultural modernism. It, first of all, is very much part of a community. It's an infill project within the existing fabric of Venice, California. Here's the site, of course. It's a courtyard house. And this was the first series of diagrams. I was really looking at positive and negative space and really exploring the outdoor volumes as carefully as the indoor volumes. And it has the ability to transform itself. It can take sun and block the sun from the south or southwest exposure. So there's the ability to really have these movable parts that can change the environment. Also, there are very large doors that can slide completely open. And we were lucky to have 3 big trees on the site. By the way, the total site is 43 feet wide by 132 feet long, total 5,700 square feet. The tree was there first, so we built the house around the tree. And you can probably see some of the influence of the souks of Marrakesh, these bolts of color. So again, being influenced by experiences, taking ideas from other places and fusing it together in a cross-cultural way. And it's really fun to be able to transform space and to create different volumes and spatial experiences by the push of a button. You can also take a running leap from the living room into the pool, and it's a get-wet concrete floor. And this is one of the courtyards. This is the family courtyard that has large pivot doors that open up. The concrete was pigmented with iron oxide that was dusted onto the concrete the day it was poured, the day it was wet. And so there's no air conditioning. It's completely naturally ventilated. Of course, we're lucky. We live a mile from the ocean, so there is, a different temperate climate. But we're also, it was important not to have air conditioning. That was an important strategy. And we do have heat, though we do need heat. We have heat underneath the floor in the form of plastic pipes and gas-fired hot water. Notice how the tree becomes literally part of the living room, and notice there's no glass. The glass has, in this photo, been pocketed completely away. So I'm continually interested in the idea of the evaporation of barriers between indoor and outdoor space. Here is the family courtyard looking back at the studio on the ground floor and a guest house on the top floor. And the path of travel is up this stair, across a glass bridge, and then up to the master bedroom. There's no paint in the house. This is actually not painted drywall. It's gypsum plaster. Again, I'm very interested in seeing the hand, the hand of the craftsman, so you see all the trowel marks, and then we put car wax over it, carnauba wax. It's not easy to see, but even many of these beams have the label from during the construction process that say no paint or beam number 5. Again, I'm interested in just seeing the process of construction revealed with the finished product. And this marriage of the future and the primitive, if you will, walking across a glass bridge suspended on nautical cable connected to a primal concrete block wall. So that counterpoint of the new and the old. And what keeps the vessel pumping is my family, so my 3 daughters and wife, a couple of cats, and a pup that is no longer with us. It wasn't a pup, 18 years old. And this is my architectural family. We're 30 of us, and it's a group of very talented people who we work together. It's very exciting to be stimulated and connected with kind of a combined energy. And actually, our space is quite interesting. It was I bought the building about 10 years ago, a defunct mortuary, but I found out later that it was, in fact, the dance hall built in 1917. So we all work in one big room, and that does help really our chance encounters as well. So just a couple of closing remarks. 1957 Cadillac, form, beautiful, but functionality, 7 miles to the gallon, it just doesn't cut it today. And so I think that, for all of us who are architects and architects-to-be, I think we clearly have a very large social responsibility. And buildings, if you look at a 30-year life cycle of a building, 90% of the cost is the amount of money that's needed to, over 30 years, to maintain it and to energize it. So I think that anything we can do to tread more lightly is really very important. And then, of course, just the whole global equality issue is very important. I think as architects, we have to be aware of those issues and just how does that balance get created, and issues of housing and globalization. They're just very vast, broad issues, but I think we are part of that dialogue. And community, again, Place Chemelfina, Morocco. How can we stimulate the chance encounter? How can we always reinforce community? It's a sustainable thing to do. The less we can get in a car and drive somewhere, and the more we connect with ourselves and each other, our families, I think that's part of, that will make us happier. And I think we have to be aware of it. The deeper we get into our experiments and our computers, the further isolated we become. So I think as architects, we can become part of an agent of trying to change that concept. And then lastly, I just like showing this photo. This is in Mexico, and it's, when my kids were little, I had to create a little shade structure, so I put 3 logs together and tied a piece of cloth to it. But I did it in such a way that when the wind stops blowing, it falls down. Thank you.